Welcome to the Top Producer Podcast with Farm CPA Paul Neiffer. The Top Producer Podcast challenges farmers to think differently. Farm management, tax issues, policy implications, and more. Gain your competitive advantage on the Top Producer Podcast.
Welcome, everyone, to the Top Producer Podcast. I'm Paul Neiffer, your host. As you can probably see, I actually have a virtual background before we get started here. That's our little ranch that my wife and I had about, I guess we lived there for about 7-8 years before we moved to Colorado. That barn in the background is our barn. I actually wanted to paint it red, and my wife said, over my dead body, so I didn't want to die, so I left it as is. So today we're actually going to have a conversation with Chris Tozlian, if I pronounced it correct. Or Chris, I think I'm close enough, aren't I?
Close enough.
Okay. And Chris is with Pinion, and I think you're based somewhere in California. Which location in California are you based in?
Yeah, that's correct. I'm here in our Fresno, California office.
Okay. I've been to Fresno many times. Probably, I guess 15 times, probably, something like that. How hot are you guys right now? Are you still fairly warm?
It's funny. We have been, but it seems like every year we get one unseasoned rain as we kind of round out the summer, and that literally happened yesterday. So
Okay.
I'm sure we've got some, raisin producers that are concerned.
Yes, they would be.
Anyone who's got crop or grapes on the ground drying, but yeah, it has been warm until this week.
Now, for the almonds and the pistachios and so on, those are still not quite ready to harvest. Is that right? Is that another month, or is that getting pretty close?
It's pretty close. I've got some clients that have already gone out and started harvest. They've started shaking and sweeping and all of that. And certainly it's not fully complete yet. That will continue on, but the process out here has started. Yeah.
Okay. Now, was this a good water year for the growers, or was it a little bit on the dry side?
Water has been such an issue for our clients, particularly in these last couple of years. This year, from what I've heard, it sounds like that at least a number of the water districts have had higher water allocations, and some of that may be maybe in line with the new administration. But yeah, we've heard anecdotally higher than originally anticipated water allocations, which has been good for our clients.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, I think as time goes by, water is definitely going to continue to be more and more critical. Actually, we have the Colorado River argument. Maybe that's the right way of saying it, or pact, or whatever. That I think the deadline is next month, and then the federal government will step in, and basically at that point, then everybody will be mad. So right now, you got some states are mad and some states are happy. If the federal government steps in, everybody will be mad, probably. So
That's right.
But we always like to get started with your background. Now, obviously, the first 4 or 5 minutes here, I rambled off on California ag, but that's okay. So why don't you share with the listeners out there where you grew up, went to college, what you did maybe before you joined Pinion, because you are with Pinion. I probably should have said that at the beginning, but just give us an idea as to your background.
Yeah, definitely. And I confess I'm prone to rambling at times, so rein me in if I go too long. But
That's okay.
yeah, so I'm a graduate of Fresno State. I was born and raised here in Fresno. I went to Fresno State, and while I was at Fresno State, I got a degree in business with an emphasis in accountancy, and then I also got a degree in history. And I tend to tell people that, and most people are surprised. But as I have learned over the years, really, you think about what we do in accounting and how we mull over financial statements and whatnot. And what we're really doing is studying the financial history of businesses. And so I've seen over time a real overlap between those two disciplines. When I graduated, I had the opportunity to go to work up in Silicon Valley for a couple of years. So I started with KPMG, and I was working in their Silicon Valley office in Mountain View. My client base was largely technology focused. Yeah. And then I was there from 2004 to 2007. And it was interesting, that was on the tail end of Enron and WorldCom and those
Yeah.
scandals that took place, and the resulting Sarbanes-Oxley legislation and the PCOB formation. And so it was a really interesting time to be part of like the SEC reporting industry, because the external accounting industry was changing so much, and so it was a great place to learn about, get real world experience about auditing and whatnot. And so I spent about 3 years there, and then my wife and I came back here to Fresno, and I've been in Fresno working professionally ever since. So I started with a company called Stoughton Davidson, which was a single office firm with deep roots here in Fresno. They had been in business since the 20s, since the
Okay.
1920s. Being here in Fresno, pretty much all longstanding accounting firms had a substantial ag presence. So that was my initial introduction into ag accounting, working with a number of our clients. And so I was part of that firm until 2015, when that firm decided to merge into what is today Pinion. And so for the last 10 years, I've been working with the people at Pinion, primarily serving ag clients.
Now, I'm a tax guy, so when we deal with gap and stuff like that, well, we sort of call that what do I want to call it? That's not our favorite activity,
Yeah.
but when we're dealing with farmers, in order to really do the tax returns and in order to deal with the bankers, because they require good financial statements, we still have to prepare, the financial information. We want to make sure that there's now no noise in there. I mean, we want to have accurate statements. So, yeah, it's just sort of curious what would be your current role at Pinion, and then we'll start diving a little bit deeper into the financial statement side.
Yeah, so great question. Probably this in a sense, a long response. When I started with Pinion, as I had mentioned, so my background is in auditing and in financial statement work on the quote unquote gap side or accrual side. And I did that really well into our merger into Pinion. Um, Sometime around 2018 or 2019, our firm really realized that more and more of our ag clients were struggling with the same issue, which was that really, like, the books were they were having a hard time closing their books. The books were not accurate, and we started looking for the why behind this. So what is causing this pervasive issue across our client base? And so, I mean, on the one hand, maybe it's very obvious, but we were trying to identify what the issues were. And we saw a couple that were really prevalent. One was that these small family businesses were no longer small family businesses, right?
Yeah.
Like, over the decades, they had grown and they'd become more complex. And both the complexity and the sheer volume of transactions that were now running through these family businesses were much greater than the operator was able to handle on a day-to-day basis. And additionally, we saw a lot of our other clients were losing their small town bookkeepers, right? So someone's been coming in once a week, couple times a month, and doing the books, and they retire, they move
Yeah.
away, they pass away, something happens, and they're not able to find a suitable replacement. And so, as a result, we started looking around and going, how do we solve that need? As you know, Pinion is super focused on ag,
Yeah.
uh, and so we wanted to create a solution that would really meet our clients where they were at. And so, historically, right, we've been around for over 90 years, the broader firm, and we've always done bookkeeping, but that bookkeeping has largely been for the purpose of tax return preparation or quarterly financials or meeting an annual need. And we said, what would it look like if we provided ongoing outsourced accounting services, so that we could support our clients not just at the end of the year, but we could support our clients throughout the year, help them process all of their bills timely, help cover their, or help process their payroll, do all these things so they've got actual, accurate, timely financial information from which they can make really good decisions. And so, anyway, long story short, as we identified that, we realized that there was a need to go and create kind of a unified offering to support that. And sometime around 2018 or 2019, I began working on that within our firm. And so myself and a couple other people have been spearheading that effort over the last 6 or 7 years. And so I would say I still do a little bit of quote unquote A&A work, but the reality is that the great majority of my time is spent supporting clients either in outsourced accounting or outsourced controllership or outsourced CFO type work.
So for our listeners out there that are going, huh, what does that mean? Let's fill in a little bit, maybe on each of those. Let's describe for the listeners exactly what each of those mean.
Yeah, yeah, would gladly do so. So again, I mean, I think so many of our clients and so many of your listeners are used to taking whatever financial information they have to their client at the end of the year when a tax return needs to be prepared. And for clients that have these farming entities, we have to essentially put together a set of financial statements, even if they're cash basis, from which to craft a tax return or prepare a tax return. And so that is kind of the lowest or most backward looking, if you will, service in that we're trying to memorialize transactions through the end of the last year. And really we're doing that annually or maybe semi-annually if we break that down, first half, second half. But we have a lot of clients who, I mean, obviously, when you think about what our clients or your listeners are doing, they have got to pay bills on an ongoing basis.
Yeah.
They've got to process payroll weekly or bi-weekly. They need to keep track of upcoming loan payments. They need to actually make sure that they're getting all of their bank transactions and corporate credit card transactions into their accounting records. And so what we've said is, hey, we can do that. Technology now enables us to partner with these clients to work to get all of this financial information into the financial records on an ongoing basis. And as part of that, we can take care of getting all of the bills coded into the system. We can take care of gathering, your payroll information based on the hours and processing payroll for you. And so it's just kind of one less thing that clients have to worry about. And so that, in a sense, is kind of the lowest level of service. It's taking care of the day-to-day transactional type activity. And the clients can still control, if you will, the flow of money. So they can still press the button and make sure that the bills actually get paid. But we can do all of the legwork so that if they want to sit down with a cup of coffee in the morning on a Friday and pay their bills, the bills are literally waiting to be paid electronically for them. And so we do that. Or if they can just send in the payroll hours for the week or for the biweekly period, we can take care of all the processing and we can take care of the W-2s at the end of the year and all of that. And so in a sense, that's the lowest level of service. That would also include things like doing the bank reconciliations on a monthly basis, entering all the credit card information. One of the reasons, and forgive me, I'm totally going off topic, but
No. This is good stuff.
one of the reasons why it's so critical is that when you think about what information farmers want after the fact or as they're going through the farming season, they want to know how much they've spent on different fertilizer inputs. They want to know the cost of the various seed types that they have put in. Or if they've bought seed from multiple vendors, they want to know what the difference ends up being. And if you think about how they've historically answered that question, assuming they can carve out time in their schedule to do that, they've got to go through their paper records, put together an Excel schedule or get out their notepad and scribble that all this down, get out the calculator and do all of these kind of like weighted average calculations. What we're telling people is all of that information already lives on your vendor invoices that you're receiving. And so if we can capture that information electronically at the time that we're processing the bill, we don't have to retabulate it again mid-season or at the end of the season. And so we work to use technology to capture that information, push it into the accounting system, and then we can download it immediately when the client wants to look at it. And
Okay.
so anyway, go ahead.
No, Chris, I want to ask a question on that. So let's say that the client, the farmer, gets the invoice for three different types of fertilizer, nitrogen, potash, phosphorus, whatever, MAP, whatever it might be. And one of it is 32 tons at $475 a ton and extended to 13,000, whatever the number is. So most farmers typically in the past, I'm going to say, and you're going to tell me whether I'm correct or incorrect, most farmers in the past, they're entering the check, ABC chemical company entering the check, done.
Yeah,
Doesn't give you much value.
that's right.
Whereas what you're saying is you're entering in the invoice, you're entering in the details of the invoice. Now, is that all a manual entry or is AI now sort of helping do
Great.
some of that automatically for you?
Great question. And so we'll touch on this more when we start talking about Xero and related
Okay.
tools. But the answer is yes, we are 100% using technology because technology has advanced such that we can essentially use technology to read those invoices, to gather all of the line item details. So again, if you get an invoice from Nutrien with 14 lines, we can create a 14 line bill in the system. And the bill's not just going to say one unit at $13,000. It's going to say $475 per unit and you bought X number of units.
Right. Right.
And in addition to that, is again, forgive me for rambling, but in addition to that, it's also going to capture the specific item code that you bought. So if you bought 25 00004 fertilizer and then you bought UAN 32, it's going to treat those as separate fertilizer types. It's going to essentially subgroup them. And then when you want to drill down and you may just want to see everything that got coded to fertilizer expense. But there's a good chance that what you really want is to know how much you spent on UAN 32 for the
Yep.
year. And
Yep.
so if we can get all of that line item information into the accounting system, then I can go run a report that says, tell me what my UAN 32 spend was for the year, and it will show you all of your purchases. And
Okay.
so again, it's people have never done it because it takes so long. Who wants to sit there and manually type that
Yeah.
in? Right. But now
Yeah.
with technology, we can gather that information. And so that's really what we're in the business of doing. Certainly we want to help clients pay their bills, but what we really want to do and where the value comes in is giving them better insight into the actual activities that have taken place during the year.
Well, and for the Excel geeks out there, you then can take that information, export it into Excel. You can allocate it to your acres. You can get a per acre cost. You can do all that what if analysis that right now. And the problem, in my opinion, the problem with Excel is powerful.
Hmm.
Problem is you make one error, you've
Hmm.
just blown all your analysis and you don't realize you've blown the analysis. So, and believe me, I've made errors in Excel. We've all made errors in Excel.
Well, and I would just add to that, you're right. There's an error issue. And then for probably, 95 to 99% of users, like we know how to use Excel, but we don't know how to use it so powerfully that we're able to just like drop in a new data table and immediately spit out the exact same
Yeah.
result every time. We have to re-download something, reformat it,
Yeah.
recreate the pivot table, do
Yeah.
X, Y, and Z. And so if you do this 6 times or 12 times or 20 times over the course of a season, there's no time savings because we're redoing every single step over and over. And so, yeah, I 100% agree with you. Like this is the power of technology that we're seeing.
Well, and I think even for smaller farmers, because typically when you're in Fresno, I mean, even a smaller farmer in Fresno might be a large farmer in the Midwest. I mean, just
Yeah,
because of the difference in value per acre. I mean,
of
five or
course.
10 or 20 or $30,000 per acre value as far as revenue versus maybe $1,000 to $1,500 in the Midwest. But even those smaller farmers, they got one entity for the operation. They got another entity for the equipment. They got another entity for the trucking because they want to keep that liability separate. They have one or two or three or four entities for land holdings and so on and so forth. And just keeping all track of all that intercompany accounting and so on can be a royal pain in the rear end. So,
Absolutely. And so I 100% agree with you. And I would say that again is why finding the right financial tools or technology tools to help support your organization is critical because today there are ways that we can help clients do that and we can point them in the right direction.
yeah.
And I mean, I'm sure you've seen over the years, right? If you've got an organization that has three, four, five, six, or more entities, it's like you have one corporate credit card. You're swiping that credit card for all six
Yeah,
entities, and it's
yeah,
like, okay, well, now we've got to go in, and I've got a transaction on entity A, but it really
yeah,
needs to be on entity B, or
yeah.
I want to split it across three entities. We've got electronic solutions for that today that previously didn't exist, and so certainly as we get into Xero and whatnot, we'll love to tell people more about that.
And before we jump into Xero, you had mentioned, I think, like a fractional CFO or fractional higher end service. Just explain for the farmers out there what that is.
Absolutely, absolutely. So again, on maybe on the more rudimentary side, we can take care of the nuts and bolts day-to-day accounting. But then we have some clients that say, okay, well, I want you to do that, but I also need someone to critically look at my month-end, quarter-end, year-end balances, and talk through whether or not the ending numbers make sense, that they look right. Or they might say, hey, this looks great in total, but I really need help breaking this out at a departmental level because I need to know what I made in corn versus what I made in soybeans versus what I made in wheat. Or they might say, hey, again, this is great, but now I need to actually start data mining this all this good information that I've got. I do need help understanding what my fertilizer spend was, either because I want to retroactively compare for budget to actual purposes, or because I now need to create my 2026 budget. And
Yep.
I know what my sales guy is telling me my spend is going to be, but I want to know what I actually am going to be spending. And so we step in and we provide those types of services as well. At our firm, that's something that I do. We have an entire consulting arm that we call it our farm business management team, and they do, I would say, managerial consulting for our clients who want better information around uh, crop level financials, input spend, budgeting, forecasting. So when we say controller CFO type, that's what we're talking about. Not necessarily reconciling the bank, but
Right.
let's get into the nitty gritty to really like data mine and get good information, granular information out of these financials that we've taken so much time to pull together.
Okay. Okay. Well, good. I think, Chris, we'll go ahead and take a quick break for a sponsor message. Then we'll start diving into some of what those tools might be.
Excellent.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Top Producer Podcast. Again, this is Paul Neiffer, your host, and we're going to rejoin our conversation with Chris Tozlian from Pinion, based in Fresno, California. So it's nice. A lot of times I typically talking to people in the Midwest, so it's nice to get some West Coast since I grew up on the West Coast. So, Chris, we mentioned Xero already a couple times. Is that one of the tools that you use to help farmers in this area?
Absolutely. So Xero is a tool that we have literally got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of entities in our firm. When I say our firm, I mean our client base that are currently using Xero. And for those listeners who maybe are not familiar with Xero, I'll share with you just a little bit about what it is and how we use it. Xero is a cloud-based accounting software that was created in Australia and New Zealand and really has an ag presence there. And Xero was first released in the United States somewhere around 2012. It's targeted to small and medium sized businesses and it's super easy to use. Um, One of the things I want to touch on, because I use this phrase cloud based, and I just want to make sure that our listeners are understanding what that means and what some of the implications of that is. So, when we say it's cloud based, that means that the Xero accounting software is not sitting on someone's individual server or specifically on their laptop. This is literally accessed by going to the internet and going to Xero.com and logging in. And because it is cloud based, it's easy to connect. Well, one, that means you can access it anywhere that you have internet, right? So you can do it from your home, your office, from your iPad, from your mobile device. But because it is cloud based, we're able to connect Xero with other financial software and then other managerial softwares. And so, as I alluded to previously, so many of our clients and probably a number of your listeners don't have access to readily available, timely financial information, interacting with their with their accounting records. Because, well, for one thing, like the bank statements, right? You don't get the bank transactions into your account until the end of the month, or corporate credit card transactions don't show up until the end of the month, till you or your bookkeeper sit down and enter those. Now we're able to take Xero and connect Xero to your corporate credit card like websites and your banking websites. And so on a daily basis, any transactional activity, deposits or disbursements or credit card spend can flow directly into Xero. And so your accounting records they have the opportunity of being much more up to date because we're able to connect those different software applications. And so that's something that our clients have liked, because the reality is that now you don't have to wait until quote unquote month end to get those transactions in. They start flowing in essentially immediately, and they can start being reconciled immediately. Um, One other thing I think to mention about it is that because Xero is cloud-based, it's able to connect with other software applications that would be useful for people in the ag industry. So I talked about in the prior segment, getting all that good line item level detail off of a vendor invoice. So like for example, we use a couple of different software applications. One that we really like is called Robot Accounts. And Robot Accounts is a pre-accounting software that literally reads these invoices, transcribes these invoices, and then once it gathers literal item purchasing information and all that line item detail, it pushes it into the accounting software to set up for bill pay. And so, and it pushes both the data in as well as a copy of the invoice. So you're able to either pay your bill directly from Xero, or if you are using a bill pay software like Bill.com or something else, you could pay it that way as well. But that software application, Robot Accounts, we use it regularly to get all of that good granular purchasing information. So that would be one example. One other example that we've seen, we've got a lot of clients who are looking to more fully automate their budgeting, planning, forecasting, as well as kind of retrospective analysis on the back end, at season end or as the season progresses. And so a number of our clients are using a software called Figured. And so Figured is used for budgeting and planning. You're probably familiar with it. And
I actually did a podcast with them about a
wonderful.
year
Okay.
ago. So.
Yeah. So for example, yeah, Figured connects directly with Xero. And if you think about it, I know a lot of farmers are already using farm management software tools to track application data, and they may do budgeting in that software. One of the problems that a lot of our clients encounter, though, is that when they want to take all that detailed budget that they've put together, there's not a way to automatically connect that with the detailed accounting software. And so if you're able to take your accounting software and connect it with your budgeting and planning software, your budget to actual analyses happen in a much more automated state. And the real power, again, I apologize, I'm getting long-winded here.
No, I like this.
The real power is if you get good data on your actual purchases, literally item by item by item, and you push that into the accounting software and you match that with the detailed forecasting and planning software, all of a sudden you've got good detailed forecasting and planning budgets compared with good detailed actual invoice activity. And now you're actually comparing apples to apples. And so something like that is the power of these web-based platforms that are all able to share information in an integrated fashion that don't require a bunch of downloads, a bunch of uploads. It just all happens in an automated way.
Now I have some practical questions, so I'm going to pretend like I'm a farmer. So I've been a farmer and I've been using QuickBooks Desktop for 20 years, and it's getting more expensive. We keep hearing that QuickBooks is saying at some point, and maybe they're not saying it, but they're definitely strongly hinting at it, desktop's going to disappear and you're going to have to move over to the online. Well, when you move over to online, hey, if I have 7 or 8 or 10 entities, instead of being charged per user, now I'm charged for every single entity. And where I used to pay maybe $600-700 a year, now it's 15 grand and so on. So from a practical standpoint, if I want to move over to Xero, my two questions are is what is it going to cost? Now, I'm not talking about Pinion services. I'm just
Mhm.
talking about Xero. And then how easy is that migration?
Yeah, great question. So, uh, Zero is a real economical platform overall. I would say, and ironically, not in preparation for this call, but I literally in the last week looked up Zero pricing. So I would say um, the majority of our actual like sophisticated operating entities that are fully active and have a high volume of transactions are spending $47 a month per entity. That's list price.
Okay.
And if you have a reduced number of transactions, I think the number is closer to about $20 a month.
Yeah,
So the pricing
that's
is,
yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
that's I won't say it's dirt cheap. You use a farm term, but
yeah,
that's dirt cheap. So
yeah, it's very economical, and so that's one of the things, as people are making that assessment with respect to making a change, it's not a significant increase from what they've historically covered. And so, part of that is whether clients are working or your listeners will be working with us or their other CPA firm or whatnot, understanding what the right specific platform or plan they're using is valuable because that could either increase or decrease cost. And what we have found is we really try to challenge ourselves to say we want to find the right plan for our clients, but we also don't want to just say, oh, each of these six entities needs the $47 a month version,
yeah,
because very very possibly a number of those land holding entities or equipment holding entities with
yeah.
limited transactions could benefit from a reduced plan.
Now, how about the transition or the implementation? How easy? What's the pitfalls that they have to watch out for, and so on?
Yeah, so that is one of the things that our team really focuses on as part of this. When clients want to migrate, that is something that we 100% support. I mean, the reality is that when you talk to pretty much anyone about software migration, no one's excited, right?
Yeah,
The thought about learning a new software kind of makes us feel a little anxious, and so that is something that we 100% lead. We support that software migration. We lead that software migration, and it really is the initial migration is a multi-step process. The first thing we do with our clients is we sit down and kind of we talk with them about their business, their operations, and we figure out all the different technology um, applications that they're going to need, and then we literally go set those up. And so we will set them up for them. That's the first step: is identify the technologies, literally get them subscribed, get them connected, and then after we do that, we start looking at data migration. And so, well, yeah, we look at data migration and we say, okay, how much historical information do you need in this new software? And how much do you really need? And how much level of detail do you need? Because what we found is that some clients think that they need a bunch of prior years, like transaction level detail. But it's like when we talk with them about what they want, they really just want to be able to run a 3-year profit and loss statement.
yeah.
And so it's like, well, maybe we can just get annual numbers in and it'll be easier for everyone. And if you want to, you want to keep access to your old software, you can do that as well. But we also support more significant migrations if people literally need to bring in the last 2 fiscal years of line by line general ledger activity. We could do that as well. And we have a number of software providers that we work with to help support that, who, I mean, that's their expertise. Once we do that, we make sure that the softwares are also set up to meet the objectives. So, for example, if a client comes to us and says, "Chris, I'm growing corn and soybeans and wheat, and it really is critical that I have we get to a department level profit and loss statement," then we make sure that the right not only general ledger accounts or trial balance accounts are set up, but also the right departmental accounts are set up for continued tracking. And so we work with them to figure out what their objectives are, and then we get the software set up correctly. And then we have to also take a look at beginning balances. And the reason why I say that is I'm sure you've encountered this with your clients over the years, that uh, you you start working with them and you realize, well, gosh, we've been laser focused on the P&L, but the beginning balance sheet isn't right. And if the beginning balance sheet is right, no future balance sheet is going to be right.
Right.
And so we also do a fair amount of cleanup as part of that like onboarding process because again, if it's not right initially, it will never be right.
Right.
And so
Right.
we work through that cleanup process with them. Once we do all that, like technically the software is set up, it's ready to go, and the client can start using it. But we do two things there as they start using it. One, we make sure that their business processes, like around accounting, have been sufficiently adapted to help facilitate like the information gathering that's necessary to be successful. And so, for example, if we are working with a client and they get an invoice in, and they go, well, I know it's a fertilizer expense. It's like, okay, well, you wanted to track by departments. How are we going to break this
Yeah.
fertilizer bill down? Do you want to allocate based on acreage? Do you want to allocate based on season of purchase? Do you just happen to know that this was specifically purchased only for wheat? If that's, and then we make sure that the coding meet both the account coding as well as the departmental coding works. And so there's some element of kind of retraining around that because it's more than just setting up the systems. We have to follow the new processes that are necessary to get us the outcomes we want. So we work with clients to do that. And then we also provide all the training. So whether they're using Xero or they're using Figured or they're using robot accounts or they use bill.com or whatever it is, we support all of that internally because we want our clients to have a positive experience. So because that's obviously going to heighten adoption as well.
Yeah.
So we support all of that.
Now, again, we have intercompany accounts. Is that something that Xero can sort of help do automatically, or do we still have to make some of those? You mentioned we get the credit card, and on this credit card, some of this bill is really for this company, and some of it's for that company, and some of it's for that company. I'm just sort of curious how Xero handles that.
Yeah, so let me tell you, there's a couple of answers to that. So the reality is that we always are going to have to account for these intercompany accounts, as you know, because we've got to get the right expenses on the right set of books. And so, each Xero, they call them ledgers, each Xero ledger is independent by entity, by legal entity. And so if we need, let's say we get a bill in and that bill needs to be split between entities one and entities two, and let's just say it needs to be split 50-50, that bill theoretically we could handle it one of two ways. We're either going to take a 50-50 bill and we're going to raise it, I don't want to say manually, but we'll use the software to raise it in both entities. Or theoretically, you could raise it in one entity and then create an intercompany journal entry on both sets of books. Xero does have a nice feature where it allows you to send invoices back and forth between entities with a special code. And so theoretically, what you could do is that you could say, well, I need a 50% reimbursement from entity B. And so entity A could literally send a receivable invoice to entity B. And so that's one way that Xero automates that process. I would add to that, though, that I had mentioned this software we use, Robot Accounts, that we really like because what Robot Accounts will do is if you send a bill in that needs to be split two ways, you can make the notations in Robot Accounts. I want to split it between entity A and entity B, and it will go and raise both bills automatically in the two entities. And it will
Okay.
do it one of two ways based on the way that you request. It will either say, raise the entire bill in the first entity because I'm going to pay the entire bill out of that entity, but then go create the intercompany journal entries on both sets of books, and it will do that automatically, which is
Okay.
really cool. Or you may say, I want to raise this bill. Maybe myself and my dad are farming together, and we like to keep things separate. And so
Yeah,
we
I'm going
want
to
to,
write a check, and you're going to
yeah,
write a
he's
check.
going to write a check, and I'm going to write a check. We can also say raise two 50% bills in each entity, and it will go do that. And so, yeah, it can handle either method. And so, that's a good example where we say, yeah, Xero has an answer for it, but we actually think that this is even better crafted. And so where we can supplement Xero for some of these more complicated situations, we'll do that. And certainly people in farming know that you've got, we might want to split a bill not just two ways, but four ways or six ways, five ways, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so in those situations, robot accounts can literally split that bill five ways if we need to.
Just curious, what would be the cost on that service then?
Yeah, great question. So robot accounts I don't want to say it's completely volume based, but it generally there's some correspondence with that. And I would say I've got some clients who are using robot accounts for as little as 150 or $200 a month for their entire organization, and then others that are larger might be closer to $500, $600 a month or whatnot.
But that'd be multiple entities, multiple transactions going on. Is that what you're saying?
That would be all of their transactions. That would be like literally running hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of bills through. And again,
Okay.
I'm providing kind of organization-wide pricing, not necessarily per entity pricing
Okay.
there.
Perfect. 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 So for a smaller organization, maybe $1,500 a month might
Yeah,
be sufficient. Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Well, good. I think I'm starting to go over my time limit. So I guess I will just ask quickly, is there anything coming down the road that you see, whether it's in Xero or AI, as far as trying to help farmers smooth out some of this accounting? And believe me, farmers hate accounting. Let's be
Yeah.
honest. They hate accounting. So what might be coming down the road?
Yeah, I think we're still trying to figure out how AI. Has been all the rage about the last 24 months or so, and
Yeah.
we're still trying to figure out what the broader implications are with the release of these new large language models that we hear about. We know that further automation is coming, and so we're excited. I know that, for example, Xero, they've got an AI assistant that's now built into Xero that will help its users identify variances or bills that are ready, that are coming due, either to be paid or to follow up on, receivables and whatnot. Or if you need to ask, if you need to ask it questions, you can literally type questions in and it has an AI module that will reply to those. So we're seeing that a couple of ways. One, literally just a way to gather information to ease searching, and then two, literally, I think we're going to see data processing go up dramatically. I mean, we still, for the time being, have to have an answer for what happens when you go to the local store and someone writes out uh, a manual invoice and gives it to you as a receipt.
Yeah.
In my mind, to some degree, that's the last frontier. But I think to the extent that we see more and more ag vendors moving to digital documents being delivered electronically, we're going to see this entire process become more and more streamlined. And so finding the right tools to receive those, right, is going to be critical, because what you don't want to do is receive a bill via email, print it, and then go give it to your CPA or
Yeah.
manually enter that in. We want to use tools that take that better digitized information and get it more immediately into the accounting software so that people have better, more timely, more reliable financial information from which to make decisions.
Okay, perfect, perfect. Well, I think Chris will end with my two or three or four key questions I always like to ask. So,
Sure.
first, did you have any mentors in this whole process as far as being the role that you're in?
Yeah, I think that in a sense, there's too many to mention. I think currently people who have been really impactful to me in my career recently or in recent years. I think about Kent Simpson, who's here at Pinion. He runs our overarching CAS practice, and he has given me a lot of guidance over the years. I've been very appreciative to him. Peter Martin in our firm, I've worked very closely with him, and he's been a constant source of encouragement. And I think too, one other person that comes to mind is Bryce Gibbs. Bryce and I have had he's out here in California and works with a lot of food and bev clients that I also service, and he's been a mentor to me as well. And so I've really appreciated those gentlemen and the way that
Yeah.
they've influenced me.
Now, I know you're busy, but do you have time for any hobbies?
I do. We've been lucky. Our family likes to travel, and for so much of my accounting career, we found ourselves really busy in the summers. But these last couple summers, we've just had some gaps of time that we've been able to get out and travel. And so last year, we had a chance to go on safari in Africa, which
Uh,
was just it was exciting. It was
which country?
We were in Tanzania. We had a chance to go to a couple of reserves there that was just spectacular. And then this summer we had a chance to to go to Greece. And
Okay.
so, yeah, it was a wonderful time. And our kids are at that preteen age where now they're a little more willing to walk and do explore, you
Well,
know.
preteen, that means you're almost not totally stupid yet.
Yeah,
So
that's
I'm
right.
warning you, that's coming. That's coming. And then after they graduate college, they find out, well, you're not so stupid after all.
That's
So,
right. Yeah.
but now, yeah, my wife and I actually went on a photo safari to South Africa about 6 years ago, and it was probably top three trip of my lifetime. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I would, if anybody can do it, I would certainly suggest doing it. So I actually won the dung spinning contest. So people probably don't want to hear about that. So
Yeah.
now, is there anything that keeps you up at night?
Yeah, I mean, but this may sound like a generic answer, but I've been thinking about it a lot recently. I think about our clients who are, it seems like more and more of them in this globalized economy are dealing with depressed or stagnant commodity prices. I mean, that I think is something that's a real stressor for our client base and probably for your listeners. And when you take that, you couple that with, continuing inflationary pressures on the input side, on the labor side, and I'm out here in California. We've got
Yeah.
a fair amount of regulation and whatnot. It feels like our farmers are being pressed on every side and margins shrink. And so I've probably said it a couple times, but that's why I keep harping on good, timely, reliable financial information from which to make decisions, because with all of these stressors, it's critical that we have as much information as we can. And so I would say that's where I feel a lot of anxiousness. We've got a lot of farmers who make all the right decisions, and at the end of the year, through forces outside of their control, it seems like they're getting pinched. And so, yeah, that I think is what has me most concerned.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And then finally, what's your definition of success in farming or accounting, whatever you want to call it? What's your definition of success?
Yeah, I might be more qualified to answer the accounting question, but I would say, from the client base that I work with, obviously, in the short term, financial profitability and continued viability is critical. Understanding that some years are going to be good and some years are going to be lean, but overall, being able to not just keep the farm afloat, but really be able to provide for the family, I think is critical. And then, on the more intermediate or long term view, the ability to at the end of it be able to pass the farm on
Yeah.
to the next generation to the extent that they're ready for it and they want it, but being able to pass it on, and not just pass it on, but in a better state than it was when it was received, right?
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
so valuable. It's so rewarding, from what I've gathered from our clients, that seems like that is really what so many of them are looking for.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. Again, Chris, thanks a lot. Anything you'd like to add before we sign off?
No, just I really appreciate you having me on. And certainly, if people have any questions or would want to talk more, they would be more than welcome to reach out to me. They can find me at pinionglobal.com.
Okay, perfect, perfect. Again, this is the Top Producer Podcast, and this is Paul Neef, your host, signing off.